So I just finished watching the Trae Young interview on Podcast P, and it was a really, really good interview. I enjoyed it, laughed, and everything like that. If you haven't subscribed to Podcast P, you should. It's a really, really good channel, as well as From the Point. My favorite is probably Club 520 with GFT. That's a good one. But anyway, Trae Young had a lot to say, but what exactly did he say? Come on in here, let's talk about it. What it do, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. And while you in here, hit that like, comment, subscribe, notification bell so you can be notified every time Hertakes uploads a new video. All right, let's get it. Excellent video. Trae touched on a lot of things. I'm not going to cover everything that they talked about. The panel had some really, really good questions for Trae. A couple of things that I was wondering about. And he clarified up some things and you know, he had some things to say. So I just want to kind of like go over, you know, my key points that I caught on to. Some topics that I just found interesting. So we're just going to talk about those and we'll go from there. The first thing I noticed off rip with this interview was that Trae was rocking an Atlanta Braves cap, and I thought that was key. I thought that was strategic. With all the, you know, hoopla, trade rumors and everything that's been going on around Trae, him not wanting to be here, I feel like he's been making a conscious effort here lately to show that he truly wants to be here in Atlanta. Of course, the panel asked him about DeJounte Murray. How did he feel, you know, when he heard we were getting him? How did he feel, you know, when it, you know, things just, you know, wasn't going right? And how did he feel, you know, about him being gone? And again, I feel like this was one of the times that he was just made sure that he was politically correct, because he you know, alluded to the fact that there's never been any issues with him and DeJounte, and I'm not sure that I 100% believe that, mainly because of some tweets that DeJounte made last season when everything really started to break down. But Trae, you know, being Trae, again, like I said, he was a master of being politically correct during this interview. And he, you know, he just said that, you know, we're good. We've always been good outside of basketball. And that helped us to keep a good professional relationship even when things weren't going so well. And that might be true. But one of the things he said that I found key, and he was like, you know, he was excited when he found out that it was getting Murray, because when Murray was with San Antonio, you know, he was really, really good defensively. He wasn't really known for as a scorer. He was really, really good defensively. And I think that basically what he was saying is like, that's why Atlanta went for him. They knew Trae's defensive struggles. They knew about Trae being a defensive liability, basically. So they went for DeJounte to make up for that. Well, so everybody knew more than anything that Atlanta really needed a two guard that was 3-and-D, you know, more so defense, because, you know, with Trae's defensive liability. But then when Murray got here, that defensive level, that intensity that he had in San Antonio just never translated in Atlanta. So that's where the problem began. But I've talked about this on this channel before, and I think a lot of it had to do with the seriousness, the severity of Trae's lack of his defensive liability. It was just too much, you know. It was just way too much for that backcourt to endure. You know, it just put too much pressure on Murray, and he just couldn't do it. So I think that that's what took away from it. It probably could have worked had, you know, Trae been a little better defensively. Murray was just having to cover way too much ground, and I hopefully, you know, we'll be able to see what he has to offer once he gets rolling with New Orleans. Nothing against him. It just didn't work out. Just didn't work. And, you know, it just is what it is. So about Zach, when they asked Trae about Zachariah Ricochet, Because I noticed too, I didn't realize people were tweeting or messing with Trae about it, commentating on it. I never paid that any attention, but I did notice the night of the draft, because I even went on Trae's platforms to see if he posted anything, because he's really normally very engaging on social media about things. And it was crickets. He didn't post anything. He didn't congratulate the young man like he normally do. He didn't. But what he said was that he reached out to Zach, privately, on a private level. He reached out to him and they talked. He congratulated him that way. So it just had me in my head that night, like, man, Trae's leaving. He don't give a damn what Atlanta's doing. He's leaving. So that's what I was thinking the night of the draft. And who knows, that could still be what it was, because we still had Murray at the time. So maybe, they didn't know, who was actually going to get traded at the time. So maybe Trae was just trying to keep a low profile about it. I don't know, but that was one of the questions asked as well. Trae said, right now his biggest thing is he wants to get back to winning. He did say that he's looking forward to playing with Zach. He thinks Zach is going to help them. Because look at it, with what happened with Murray. Zach is much taller. Between Zach and Dyson Daniels, that's going to make up a lot of room for the Hawks on the defensive end. They're going to be able to step in and help Trae. They'll be able to stretch the floor as well. Maybe not so much Dyson, because he does have shooting struggles. But I think with Trae, because he mentioned it also, and I've mentioned it on this channel, he makes players better. He'll be able to get Dyson more open looks, and I think that's going to help those shots to start to fall, which will in turn help the team. Again, Trae being politically correct when asked what player in the league that he would really, really like to play with, who he think that better fits his play style. He was politically correct and just stuck to the players that he's played with. He even mentioned John Collins. That's how I knew, okay, he's stretching right now. Which they did play good together, but I know those two didn't get along. He focused on the players that he's played with in Atlanta, and he pretty much said he feels like he can play with anybody, make anybody better. Now for me, when they asked him that question, I thought about Jimmy Buckets. I think that if Jimmy Buckets could come to the A, or even just Trae playing with Jimmy Buckets, I think that would be great. Paul George was pretty much thinking more so of bigs. He mentioned Nick Claxton. Now I want to say I did a video last season about wish we could get Nick Claxton. I think that I agree with Paul George on that. I think another person would be Bam Adebayo would be really, really good. Somebody that catch them lobs and, play inside. I don't know. But right now we got Capella and we got OO. So we just got to do the best that we can with those. And again, Trae's got all the confidence in the world. He can play with anybody. So that's where it starts. It starts at that point. From the point, it starts right there, and that's what he feels like he can make anybody better. And I believe it. He talked about his pinky. He's still rehabbing his pinky. He even showed the difference in the two pinkies. He put his hands up and showed. So he's still feeling some, tension in the area around the pinky, but he played, an open run for the first time without the handguard. So he's beginning to get that burn without that handguard. So hopefully, by the time the season starts, at least, between the preseason and the season actually starting, he's going to be A-okay. When asked about being a hated player, called overrated and all this type stuff, Trae pretty much was like, hey, he goes out and do his thing, put his head down and do his work. If you ask any, player that he's ever played with, they're going to let you know that he's not a selfish player, that he's a team player. And I believe that because I watched an interview with Torin Prince did on a podcast about a month ago maybe, and when asked the best player he's ever played with or his most favorite player that he's played with, he mentioned Trae Young and how, talented Trae is and how unselfish the boy is. And, he got his most catch and shoots playing with Trae Young. So I believe it, and Trae was like, and it's just how the world is, right? He mentioned how even at the Madison Square Garden, how he gets all the hate that he gets from, the fans and everything. But when he goes out into their city, to their restaurants, they all love him. They want to come, Trae Young, and so he gets love. But he doesn't let that move him. And even Paul George commented like, man, it always blows my mind when I hear all the hate, you being snubbed, from the Olympics and things like that, All-Star and things like that. He mentioned that, and he's like a guy that's a walking 30-10 guy. How can he receive all this hate? It just makes you wonder. They talked about the 3v3 tourney that was introduced into the Olympics. And it's crazy that they brought this up because that is something that I wondered about, because I honestly had never heard of any of those guys that represented the United States. And my thought on that, my take on the 3v3 in the Olympics was this. Why didn't they pull players from the Big Three? Maybe the team that won the Big Three tourney or championship, whatever they call it. I've only watched, tapped into the Big Three, not as much as I should. I need to support it a little more. I wonder why those guys couldn't be the ones participate in the 3v3. They're used to playing 3v3. They're actually in a 3v3 league. Most of them are ex-NBA players because, as they mentioned on this podcast, most NBA players are thriving. They're not going to want to go participate in the 3v3 because they're going to look at it as like they're being slighted because they didn't make the 5v5 squad. I'm not going to go play 3v3. They would have to swallow their pride. But I feel like if it's players that's already in a 3v3 league, why aren't they the ones being considered to play in the 3v3? Or are they? I don't know. I haven't tapped in. I didn't even know that there was going to be a 3v3 until the Olympics started. But those were my thoughts as I was watching the Olympics. And then the last thing that, caught my attention that I want to tap in on is Trae's celebration. Where did that come from? I think it's cold. No pun intended. Apparently there's a soccer player that's saying he stole it from him. But I was going to go do some research and go back and see, follow this guy and see if I see any footage prior to Trae doing it. Because I want to say Trae probably started doing it around 2019, 2020. So up in there. When was he drafted? 2018? I don't know. Somewhere up in there. I want maybe 2020 when he did it, that 2020 year. So I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna go look and see when this guy started doing it. But yeah, there's a overseas soccer player that's saying that Trae got that gesture from him. Now, what I did like about this exchange, Trae gave Paul George, Podcast P, Playoff P. He gave him a 3-point celebration that I thought is dope. I hope Paul George do it. He make some P's like this after he hit the three, like have him down at his side, hit your three and do that for Podcast P, Playoff P, whatever. I think that's dope, and I hope Paul George implement it. I thought that was pretty good of Trae to come up with that, and Paul George should do it. He said he's often thought about a celebration, what he could do, but I thought that was a really, really good one. I'm ready for the season to get started, ready to see these boys hoop together, see what we got, because I think we're going to shock the world. We're going to do, I'm predicting we not going to be a play-in team. We probably gonna get like that 6th seed. We shall see. But anyway, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, stay safe. On to the next one. Peace.